Hey, my name is Arije. I'm a dyslexic in the field of education studies, and dyslexia has been a focus of mine now for a very long time. It's also what my master's thesis is going to be about, and today I'm going to talk about one of the concepts that I find very beneficial on a more personal level. So I would like to tell you why I think that the concept of neurodiversity is really important. And in order to do so, I will have to start at the very beginning also of my life, or in the early years of it, where I've been diagnosed with dyslexia. And I never felt disabled or dysfunctional. I definitely didn't feel like I had a learning disability. Of course, reading and writing was always a struggle. But I did not feel like that made me disabled. And that is a common pattern. So I did also a study with people with learning differences. And what came out of that is that that feeling of being stigmatized by society came up over and over again. So I think we are a community where we don't feel disabled and still are labeled. And I think the danger in this is that these young kids will internalize these negative stigmas. So they will say, well, yeah, I'm gonna, or I start to believe this. I start to believe that I can't really learn properly, or I start to believe that I am dysfunctional. And I think the concept of neurodiversity really goes away from this really negative impact that society has on people like me. And instead, it focuses way more on the positive. It goes in and tells us, well, we are different, and it falls into the normal variety of human, or the variety of what it means to be human. You have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's normal. So that is already really good. And it also states that they need to be treated with respect, which is also something necessary, I think. And as a next step, it also tries to explain to us like why we are stigmatized, and it does that by also pointing to society, telling us, well, we have this phenomenon where we focus more on the negative, we look through a medical lens onto the world, and we're really not that good at recognizing the good in people. So that's already good, and it also tells us, well, you have these norms and values in society, like for example reading and writing, and you have the diagnosis. So these two line up, and they don't only line up for dyslexics, but also for a variety of other learning differences. So it shows us the relevance of society, and it tells us, well, it's not just you, it's a combination of different aspects that create your struggle. And in a society focused on individualism, on the individual, it is very fast forgotten that also teachers are involved, that parents are involved, that learn therapists are involved, and all these other people. So that's one huge positive also. And lastly, I want to say, well, it also gives us a new direction. It tells us where to go, and it tells us what to focus on. And it does that by telling people with learning difference, well, you also have strength. And there's this another concept called twice exceptional. I think that's also hard to grasp for society, where they say, well, you're really talented and you're really struggling. So you are exceptional in both areas. So easiest to explain that is with autistic people. So they're really talented in recognizing detail, for example, and they really struggle sometimes in social situations. So you have both, and that's also something. It's often like in either you can really read and write, or either you are really social, or you have really a problem. So it's it's like this. It's not that two-dimensional. You can have both sides. You can struggle and be brilliant. So that's another point. And lastly, it shows us, the strengths that we have. So, for example, in the area of creativity, that's why we see a lot of architects that are really great. You can see it in filmmakers. Disney, for example, was a dyslexic, and I would encourage you to look up different dyslexics or other dyslexic that really flourish in our society, and there are a lot. So that would be also a strategy to rebuild a more positive concept of dyslexia. And as a whole, that new direction, and also the knowledge that we should focus on these areas, and that we have the possibility as individuals to restructure our environment in a way that we as individuals can thrive, is super important. So, for example, in my BA, I started to do all my big tests that I had lingual. So I was just talking to my professors, and we had a conversation, and that's how I've been tested. That has been huge for me. That has been really, really huge for me. And that is also utilizing some of the strengths that I developed, because I have not really, because reading and writing was always difficult. I went to a different area, which was like, more focused on talking to people. And because of that, I developed that strength more and more and more. So now I can utilize it to, spread also some of this information. And that is what I would like to keep on doing. So that's why I think that the concept of neurodiversity is important, and why we all should care. So if you want to see more on this concept, or if you want to see more of this type of information, then just look at the other videos that I created.